I have now used the iPhone 11 Pro Max as my daily phone that stays in my pocket with my SIM card for an entire full 7 days, and these are my impressions of what Apple has upgraded the lineup with this year. As stupid as the name is for the Pro Max, I think this is by far one of the most enjoyable experiences I've ever had year-over-year upgrades from an iPhone. No, from the front, things have not changed very much, but it's honestly not the aesthetic differences in a phone that really make the most long-lasting impressions. The cool look in the screen-to-body ratio, or the sides, or just the camera modules, or whatever you want to talk about, all of those things you get used to very quickly, which is why I think the changes Apple made from the XS to the 11 may actually be more substantial than that of the 11 to the 12, even though they could be redesigning so much, squared edges, smaller notch, the new form factors as well. All of these things you get used to within a day or so, but the things that really do change in the long term are things like the battery life improvements, which are quite substantial. After using this phone for a full week, I can now confidently say that yes, Apple was not exaggerating when they said the Pro Max would grant you 5 hours longer battery life than the XS Max could offer. I did a battery test on this phone. If you followed my Twitter, you probably know about it, but last Wednesday, I just wanted to see if my phone was pretty much all the way charged up. I didn't get it quite to 100. I just considered it good enough at 98% battery. I wanted to see how long the phone could really last on a single charge. So I decided, even though I have these Qi chargers everywhere, I'm not going to charge the phone, and I'm going to go out of my way to use it more often than I would normally use my iPhone. So situations where I would normally switch to my iPad, or situations where maybe I'll watch some videos on my computer. No, I decided to do everything I could last Wednesday on my phone, and the battery life was honestly quite amazing. So I took my phone off the charger at 98% battery at 4:04 in the morning. I know, I get up very early, but I used it throughout that entire day. I used it as much as I could. My screen on time was getting real up there into the 6-7 hour range, and it was still holding strong. And by the time it was the end of the day, even with all my heavy use, it was still rocking like a 40 to 30% battery. So I decided, you know what? I'm gonna keep using it until it's dead. So even though I went to sleep that night, I did not put my iPhone on the Qi charger intentionally, just to see how much longer it could go. And then the next day, of course, I wake up at around 4 a.m., pick up the phone again, and I still have a solid 30% left. Even when you're not using it, it's able to retain its battery life for many, many hours. As long as the screen is not on, it will preserve the battery as much as possible. So I wake up, I got 30% left, I use it even longer, and doing some math, calculating the screen on time and how long it was since my last charge. Basically, what I'm trying to say is my iPhone 11 Pro Max, without touching a charger even for a second, was easily able to last me 28 hours with heavy use. Screen on time is somewhere between 10 and 11 hours. I don't know how long some of you have been watching my channel, but the best battery life I've ever tested in a smartphone was the Galaxy S10 Plus, where I had very, very similar results. I charged it one day, I used it extensively throughout the entire day, and then the following morning, I used it for many more hours until it was completely dead, and this didn't die on me until 8:35 a.m. of the following day, even though I woke up at 4:04 the day before. So that's an over 28-hour battery life, even with pretty heavy use, I would say. I was listening to podcasts, I was browsing social media like crazy, I was taking pictures, I was taking videos. I'm sure you could probably just take the brightness and turn it up all the way, or decide you want to record a 4K at 60 video for 2 hours. Those may drain the battery a lot faster, so it's pretty difficult for Apple to kind of easily, through marketing, be able to tell you how much better the battery life is. So I think them just saying on average it's going to give you 5 hours longer was pretty safe. When it comes to audio playback, it's even longer than that. And when it comes to camera performance, obviously it's not 5 extra hours. So the 5 Plus Apple talked about was a happy medium. And speaking of the camera, this has to be my favorite feature of the iPhone 11 Pro Max so far. Battery life is up there. Being able to just use it throughout the day and not even touch a charger is really impressive. And I would just about go as far to say that this is a better battery life than the Galaxy S10, but honestly, any phone that reaches a full day of battery and still has charge left over, that's a winner in my book. That means A+ battery, because we're not going to see phones that can easily last you like 3 to 4 day battery lives, and most of us charge our phone when we go to sleep anyway. So A+ battery, as long as you can, even with high demand use, go through the entire day. But regardless, the cameras on this thing continue to blow me away. As much attention as the ultra-wide gets, and let me not fault the ultra-wide, it is a very, very cool lens, and it gives gives you a really unique perspective. I also really love the improvements made to the telephoto lens, which are easy to not see because everyone is so distracted with their ultra-wide shots, which do look cool. And I have to admit that there's so many situations where you open your camera and it just seems like a regular picture, but as soon as you activate that ultra-wide, everything changes and it suddenly just makes life feel bigger than it truly is. And the telephoto lens, now that it supports lowered lighting situations, is also able to take some really cool shots, even if its aperture isn't as low as the regular lens. I also messed around with night mode a bit, and I thoroughly enjoyed it as well. I've been able to take pictures of the night sky, and I've never in my life had a phone that could pick up stars in the night and be able to take 30-second long exposure shots. I'm sure Pixel is going to have something like that on the Pixel 4 this year, but the fact that Apple beat them to kind of the long exposure thing within the native first-party app is really impressive. I love the fact that the iPhone just is able to detect when it's on a tripod and automatically adjust for that and say, okay, I'll take a longer exposure now. But even when you're taking it just handheld, you can let the long exposure be up to 5 seconds, and when you're inside or whatever, taking night shots is really impressive. I like knowing that even in low light situations, the iPhone isn't going to have any trouble pulling out detail and pulling out color. And believe me, I know these features have been in other smartphones before. It's just really nice to finally see it brought to a phone that also has an all-day battery life and also has a really solid biometric with Face ID, which is much faster than before. That also has a build quality that I appreciate the most. The extra added weight is really something I'm okay with because it makes the phone feel more solid. I love having stainless steel edges compared to so many other Android phones I've tested that always have these edge displays that feel very sharp in the hand. Some people may like them. I prefer the rounded edges of the iPhone because it's just more comfortable and it's more gesture friendly when you're used to swiping up all the time on the home screen. Having that rounded off glass and stainless steel body makes swiping up with your finger all the time much more comfortable than phones like the OnePlus 7 Pro, which I used and had gestures, but because it's so sharp on the bottom, it doesn't feel as nice swiping up to go home. And I'm also getting it in a phone that finally has no limitations on the ultra-wide sensor. Whether it was you can't shoot video with the ultra-wide or you can't shoot 60 FPS on the ultra-wide, Apple was having none of that and said, no, if we're doing an ultra-wide lens, we're doing it right, and they make sure you can shoot 4K at 60 on all three lenses. In fact, even this year on the front, which I've used numerous times. I did a whole big 20-minute vlog over on the Talks channel using the front-facing camera on this phone. I didn't get the audio balance quite right, so if it sounds weird on that vlog, I apologize. But while there have been giant revolutions when it comes to camera quality technology, yeah, a smartphone microphone is going to be a smartphone microphone. But still, compared to other smartphones I've compared it to, it is on par. One of the best microphones I've ever used on a smartphone. And a thing I really appreciate in day-to-day use is also the improved brightness of the display. This is not something I noticed about the Pro Max until I started using it in daylight. I was outside waiting for someone and I decided to pull out my phone, and I quickly realized with this much brighter Super Retina XDR display, whatever you want to call it, I wasn't squinting so hard and the fingerprints on the glass were not covering up the display so much as they used to back on my XS Max. So it was much easier to see and read the content I was enjoying on my Pro Max because of that upgraded display, and I'm so glad Apple didn't just throw in the same display as last year. They decided that even though it's the same size and it's the same pixel density, we're going to make it even better than before and much easier to read in direct sunlight. I also think it's super underrated that this is one of the most water-resistant flagship smartphones out there right now. Compared to the Galaxy Note 10, which can be in water for 30 minutes of 1.5 meters, this one's rated for 4. And compared to other water-resistant phones I found up there, not many have an IP rating for 4 meters deep for 30 minutes. That's kind of unheard of, unless you want to talk about those phones they make specifically for scuba diving, but no one actually plans on buying those. So it's very comforting to know that my phone can handle lots of deep water pressure and still stay dry on the inside, keeping the electronics okay. And of course, 1 week in, I no longer have 3D touch, but I think the alterations Apple has made with iOS 13 to make haptic touch more reasonable are completely easy to get used to. I don't really miss 3D touch that much just because of how the long press has been adjusted in iOS 13, and it's also more consistent across the entire iPhone line, plus with iPads adjusting to the same thing now too. It's been a non-stop enjoyable experience with the iPhone 11 Pro Max. So grateful we don't have to compromise anymore and choose, do you want the best camera and the best display in a phone, or do you want the best battery life? Now you can have all three in one solid package that you're going to continue utilizing the benefits of, between the added lenses making a big difference, the upgraded front-facing camera, the improved battery life, so many day-to-day things things that are going to make a big impact on how you use your phone throughout the year and not just look good for a concept or an unboxing video and then you get used to it within a couple of minutes. That's why I appreciate the iPhone 11 so much, and it's also why I think there's a lot more changes that are going to be noticeable in this phone than a phone that gets a complete redesign like the ones we're probably getting next year. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think of your 11 Pro Max 1 week in by hitting me up over on Twitter or joining our Discord. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you guys in the next one.